Hello and welcome to Faith Evolving. My name is Mary Clare, and today we're going to be doing a crash course on the season of Lent. Well, friends, it's Lent. Maybe you observe Lent, or maybe you've just seen some jokey jokes about it. For example, this year for Lent, I'm giving up. But what actually is Lent? How is Lent? Why is Lent? You lent me a book and I never gave it back to you because I have a stack of library books from last semester that I still need to return, and it's actually a very pressing issue. I stare at them every day, but I don't actually take them to the library, and I don't know why. Is that what we're talking about? No, not that type of Lent. We're talking about those springtime weeks where your local Catholic parish is advertising so many fish fries. We'll get into why fish fries a little bit later. But before that, just want to let you know, if you'd like, you could like this video. Maybe do a little comedy comment throughout the video. While you're at it, maybe do a little, hey, I kind of like this gal. I'll subscribe. That'd be cool. Okay, keeping it going now. Lent is a period of 40 days dedicated to penance and or self-reflection leading up to Jesus' death and resurrection. It begins on Ash Wednesday and concludes with Easter, but the dates change every year because Easter changes every year. Prior to the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, Easter was celebrated at just like on different dates throughout the world. And so they're like, we should probably standardize that. Okay, let me look at my notes for this one so I get it right. During this council, they decided that Easter would be the first Sunday after the first full moon after the vernal equinox, but would have to be also after Jewish Passover. You got that? So in order to make this maybe a little bit easier, they standardized the vernal equinox, which is the point between the winter solstice and the summer solstice, as March 21st. And then that next full moon is often known as the Paschal moon because it's the one that determines Easter, and Paschal is, Easterly term and blah, blah, blah. Oh, you thought it would be that simple? No, because the Great Schism happened in 1054. And part of the difference between the Western Church and the Eastern Church is that the Western Church switched over to the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar that we kind of have like universally now. Like it's the one, if you look at your phone and you see the calendar, that's the Gregorian calendar. But the Eastern Church stayed with the Julian calendar, which was the calendar that was used during the time of the Council of Nicaea. And March 21st and the Julian calendar is actually April 3rd in the Gregorian calendar. So the vernal equinox is determined differently between the Western Church and the Eastern Church, and so Easter is different, and also the Lents are different because the Western Church doesn't count Sundays in their idea of the 40 days, but the Eastern Church does count Sundays. They do a straight through 40 days. So their Ash Wednesdays are also different. Not just because the Easters are different, but also because the timing is different. So that's why if you are Eastern Orthodox or you have friends who are part of the Eastern Orthodox churches, they might have a different Easter, or, they do have a different Easter than Catholic and Protestant friends, or if you're Catholic or Protestant. Still, Lent generally falls somewhere between February and April, or if it's a really late year in the Eastern Orthodox Church, like maybe beginning of May, like the early days of May. AKA the ickiest parts of the year, weather-wise, at least in my opinion, in my spot in the Northern Hemisphere, for looking at the ickiest parts of yourself. Yay, joy, fun are not words generally used to describe Lent. I mean, it's even a tradition not to say the word hallelujah during Lent because it's praise and too joyful, and it messes with the solemn vibe. But where did Lent come from, and why are the different Lenten traditions the way that they are? Fasting in preparation for Easter dates back to as early as the 4th century, but it was a much shorter time leading up to like the big 3 days of Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter Sunday. But over time grew to a 40-day period, and 40 is a very biblical number, but specifically to symbolize the 40 days Jesus spent in the wilderness, being tempted by the devil, Satan, the enemy, whichever term you would like to use, before entering his public ministry. Pre-medieval Christianity saw Lent, or this period of fasting and intentional, like, hey, it's solemn and somber right now, as a time to prepare new converts for baptism, and also for like known public sinners to face penance and repentance, and so they were excluded from communion during that time, but then were welcomed back for Easter and all of that. So it's kind of like a, hey, you're in timeout from God, I guess. You're in timeout from communion, more so. I don't know if we're ever really in timeout from God. Okay, moving on. However, the medieval period saw a greater emphasis on personal sinfulness, so the penance aspect of Lent became the primary focus. You kind of suck, and you should spend some time thinking about how you kind of suck so that maybe you'll get better at not sucking, was kind of what you did during Lent. I forgot to bring this book upstairs with me, but Keeping Time, the Church's Years, is this very nerdy church book, and it analyzes how Lent's history impacts its observance today, stating, such a medieval pattern exists for some Christians to this day. Some midweek services focus on the details of Christ's passion, the story of Jesus' death and resurrection, and individuals are urged to identify with his suffering or to demonstrate their penance by giving up something for Lent. However, in the 20th century came a reevaluation of Lent. An emotional focus on the passion proclaimed through the blending of the 4 Gospels did not correspond well with contemporary biblical exegesis, and for many people, fasting had become so minimal that it had little meaning. This is why the observation of Lent varies so much between Christians. Honestly, some don't even integrate it into their worship schedule. However, churches who follow the lectionary, which is this big master, like, church calendar with corresponding readings and prayers and themes, real church nerdy things, usually do at least a little bit of Lent because it's part of the lectionary, it's built in, and so they might change the sanctuary, the big room where everyone worships, to have the colors of Lent, which is usually pink and purple, and I should have looked up why before filming. Editing Mary Clare dropped the fun fact. Purple symbolizes penance and pink symbolizes anticipation. So if you're mainline Protestant or Catholic, you probably have experienced Lent in your like actual church experience in the church building. But on an individual level, some people give up something for the 40 days, like chocolate or alcohol, or if you're my friend Catherine in the 5th grade, you try to give up school. But some people, rather than giving something up, they add on a practice. They take something on, like a daily devotional. Because the Western church doesn't count Sundays in the 40 days, it's because they're viewed as like little mini Easters. So for some people, if they give something up, Sunday is like their little cheat day. Some people, like me, are somewhere in between. I'm terrible with consistency. Every time I've tried to give something up, it's kind of like a New Year's resolution. I don't last very long with what I promised I would do. Same with doing a devotional or something. I think it's just because I'm lazy, Also, because growing up, that wasn't something we really did during Lent as part of my family culture, like the whole 40 days. But we did observe the whole not eating meat on Fridays. So I do continue that into my adulthood. And I guess fish doesn't count. And if Sundays during Lent are mini Easters, Fridays during Lent are mini Good Fridays. And since Jesus sacrificed his flesh, we don't eat flesh, specifically meat from mammals, because that's considered a luxury. But it's the no meat on Fridays is a leftover from the more extreme fasting, just like dialed back and pretty low commitment. I'm really great at being a Christian. Yep, maybe the commenters were right. Maybe I'm a fake Christian. I don't know. But I usually am pretty good at not eating meat on Fridays. The thing that gets me is pizza. I remember in 7th grade, I took some leftover pizza to school and I took a bite and I realized that pizza had pepperoni in it. And I was like, God, I already started this piece of pizza. The sin has already been committed. Let me just finish this slice. Yeah, so pizza's my downfall during Lent generally. Now, if you're about to go through a period of fasting, how are you going to get rid of all of that perishable, rich, fatty food? Well, you feast. That's right, I'm talking about Fat Tuesday. It's also sometimes called Shrove Tuesday, and people eat pancakes. Or, if you're in New Orleans, or if you're my neighbor from New Orleans, then it's Mardi Gras. So cut into that king's cake and hope you get the slice with baby Jesus. It's the last day of the Epiphany season. Say all the hallelujahs you want and relish in the last death rattle of the remnants of the Christmas season, because tomorrow is gonna be Ash Wednesday and you're gonna have to confront your own mortality. But during Mardi Gras, we're gonna live forever. We're never gonna die. But nevertheless, time will keep on ticking. Ticking into the... Don't copyright claim me. Okay. And bring us to Ash Wednesday, which is the day this video was released. And Ash Wednesday is a pretty grim holiday as far as holidays go in the Christian tradition, but it's one of my favorites.
Get some help.
And if you're watching this the day of release, you may be wondering, why were people walking around today with little smudges of dirt on their face? Curology sponsor me so I can go tell them to Rachel Hollis, girl, wash your face. Except don't actually say that to anyone, because it was actually very intentional and it is a religious practice, and it would probably be like kind of disrespectful. So like I said up top, Ash Wednesday kicks off this Lenten season. And during your general Ash Wednesday service, you go up and you get ashes on your head in the shape of a cross. And the ashes are usually made from the palms from the Palm Sunday from the previous Holy Week Lenten season. And, you know, Palm Sunday comes towards the end of Lent. And as you're getting the ashes on your forehead, person administering the ashes usually says something along the lines of, remember, you are from dust, and to dust you shall return. That's reminding us that we were created from dirt or ash, and eventually we will die and our bodies will decompose and turn back into ash/dirt. And like I said, it's a little... it brings the vibe down, but I would argue in a good way. I think it's a very humbling experience, and I think Christians especially need to be humbled sometimes. It's supposed to be a big part of, you know, our general conducting of ourselves in the world. I say as someone who has a YouTube channel and is like, yeah, I know things. But blessed are those who humble themselves, says Jesus. I'm paraphrasing. Call me the Message Bible. All right, we're derailing quite a bit, so you can tell we are reaching the end of the video. But I want to leave you with a bit of a benediction, or good news. Perhaps Lent doesn't sound like good news to you, but I want to offer you all a post that The Instagram account Black Liturgies posted a few days ago about Lent. And if you are not following them, go follow them. It's a great account. And they actually have a little slide thing that is just, what is Lent? And I was like, great, I'm making a video about this. And I love, love, love the way that they framed Lent. And I want to read it to you all now. Lent is a 40-day liturgical season that embodies a longing for liberation, as well as a commitment to bear witness to the suffering of the world. In many Christian traditions, Lent is a season to choose a desire or practice to give up, as a kind of sacrifice. But we can also consider taking up a new practice. What are practices we can commit to in solidarity with those who are suffering? How will we bear witness to the dust? Lent is about existing in the pain of the world, not rushing past it towards some kind of spiritual, toxic positivity. There's a heaviness in the air. I suspect you feel it too. In Lent, we are reminded we are free to say so, free to grieve. Come, let us journey together. And beautiful words, just as Black Liturgies always delivers beautiful, beautiful words. So thank you all for watching. I would like to give a special shout out to my patron saints over on Patreon. Stay safe out there. Ooze love out there. Bye.